Hey everybody, this video lesson is going to cover the concept known as properties of matter. Now, as you know, science is full of vocabulary terms, and if you don't know what the vocabulary terms really mean, then you're really going to struggle trying to understand science. And so first let's talk about what a property is. A property is a word or words used to describe things. Now, if I give you a can of pop, and chances are most of you have seen a can of pop or a can of soda in your lives. And I say, describe that can of soda to me. Well, you're going to come up with a number of ways to describe it. You might tell me the shape of the can. Maybe it's tall, it has a round top. Maybe you'll describe the color, it's red. Maybe you'll lift it up and tell me it's heavy or it's light. Well, if you used any of these words, you were describing to me a physical property of the can. And a physical property describes the way an object looks or feels. If you use any of your five senses to describe the way that object looks, and once again the five senses are sight, smell, sound, taste, and touch, then you used a physical property to identify that object. Now, if you looked on the side of the can and you told me any of the ingredients that make up that soda, or you told me how much energy you would get from drinking that soda, then you are using something called a chemical property. A chemical property can only be observed, or you can only see a chemical property if you know the makeup of the substance, or in other words, if you know the chemical composition, or if you know the atoms and molecules that make it up. Generally, you can't see chemical properties. You can only observe them when you destroy the substance. So in summary, descriptive words are either physical properties or chemical properties, depending on if you're describing the way it looks or you're describing the atoms and molecules inside. There are two other ways that you could describe properties of matter, and these are different than physical or chemical. These are ways to describe matter using numbers or not using numbers. Any property, physical or chemical, that uses numbers is called a quantitative property. Do you see how the word quantitative has the prefix quanta in it, like quantity? You say how many eggs are in a quantity of eggs. You would say there are 12 eggs usually in a quantity. And so if you use numbers to describe something, you are using a quantitative property. On the other hand, if you do not use numbers, we call that a qualitative property. Examples of quantitative properties could include any measurement, like it's 18 inches long, or how much volume it has in it, like it has 12 ounces. In other words, if you used a measurement tool to gather information, it is a quantitative property. And like quantitative properties, qualitative can be also physical or chemical. So a qualitative physical property is, it's heavy. It doesn't use numbers, it just tells me what it's like without numbers. Other qualitative property examples include texture, hardness, color, or shape. So we use these four terms in combination to describe objects that we see in chemistry. You can have quantitative physical properties, you can have qualitative physical properties, you can have quantitative chemical properties, or qualitative chemical properties. So it's not pick one of the four, but pick one of the top two and one of the bottom two. So let's put our describing words to the test. I want you to pause the video right now and jot down all the different ways that you would describe this car that you see in front of you. I'm also going to do the same, and then we'll reveal our describing words and describing terms and talk about them, whether or not they're chemical, physical, qualitative, or quantitative properties. So here's a list of the words that I came up with to describe this car. First of all, I said that it's orange. It's the most obvious property of this car. It's its color. Remember, I observed that with my eyes, so that must be a physical property. And since it didn't have any numbers, it's a qualitative property. Next, I said that it looks fast. Again, that's a physical property that's qualitative. There are no numbers, and it's just how I describe the way it looks. The next one I said has 4 wheels. Now that's quantitative because there's a number associated with it, and I'm counting the number of wheels, and so once again that's a physical property. I said that it probably goes 100 miles per hour. another quantitative property. It probably goes a lot faster than 100 miles an hour, but I just wanted to use a number to describe its speed. Next, I said it's got gasoline to run. Now, gas is a compound. It's a molecule that you use to run. And since I'm using a compound to describe it, it's a chemical property. There are other cars that run on electricity. That would be a chemical property of that car. But this one, I think, runs on gas. It's got 2 doors. That's a quantitative physical property. I said it's made of metal and also made of rubber, both of which talk about what makes it up. So since it's metal and rubber, we're talking about the atoms and molecules that make it up. So those are chemical properties of this car. So as you can see, I can use a combination of physical, chemical, quantitative, and qualitative properties to describe any object that's put in front of me. Look over your list now and try and identify whether or not it's a physical, chemical, qualitative, or quantitative property. Well, that takes care of this video lesson. Thanks for watching.